Here are 40 highest worldwide box office earning movies that we bet you did not know about. Like our video and subscribe to our channel if you find our content useful. Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. Directed by Rob Marshall. Starring Johnny Depp and Penelope Cruz. Release year 2011. Aladdin. Directed by Guy Ritchie. Starring Will Smith and Mena Massoud. Release year 2019. Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Directed by Gareth Edwards. Starring Felicity Jones and Diego Luna. Release year 2016. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Directed by Gore Verbinski. Starring Johnny Depp and Orlando Bloom. Release year 2006. Toy Story 3. Directed by Lee Unkrich. Starring Tom Hanks and Tim Allen. Release year 2010. Toy Story 4. Directed by Josh Cooley. Starring Tom Hanks and Tim Allen. Release year 2019. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Directed by J.J. Abrams. Starring Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill. Release year 2019. Joker. Directed by Todd Phillips. Starring Joaquin Phoenix and Robert De Niro. Release year 2019. The Dark Knight Rises. Directed by Christopher Nolan. Starring Christian Bale and Michael Caine. Release year 2012. Transformers: Age of Extinction. Directed by Michael Bay. Starring Mark Wahlberg and Stanley Tucci. Release year 2014. Skyfall. Directed by Sam Mendes. Starring Daniel Craig and Javier Bardem. Release year 2012. Transformers: Dark of the Moon. Directed by Michael Bay. Starring Shia LaBeouf and Josh Duhamel. Release year 2011. Captain Marvel. Directed by Anna Boden. Starring Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson. Release year 2019. Spider-Man: Far From Home. Directed by John Watts. Starring Tom Holland and Samuel L. Jackson. Release year 2019. The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King. Directed by Peter Jackson. Starring Elijah Wood and Ian McKellen. Release year 2003. Aquaman. Directed by James Wan. Starring Jason Momoa and Amber Heard. Release year 2018. Captain America: Civil War. Directed by Anthony Russo. Starring Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. Release year 2016. Minions. Directed by Pierre Coffin. Starring Sandra Bullock and John Hamm. Release year 2015. Iron Man 3. Directed by Shane Black. Starring Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow. Release year 2013. The Fate of the Furious. Directed by F. Gary Gray. Starring Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson. Release year 2017. Incredibles 2. Directed by Brad Bird. Starring Craig T. Nelson and Holly Hunter. Release year 2018. Beauty and the Beast. Directed by Bill Condon. Starring Emma Watson and Dan Stevens. Release year 2017. Frozen. Directed by Chris Buck. Starring Kristen Bell and Idina Menzel. Release year 2013. Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. Directed by J.A. Bayona. Starring Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. Release year 2018. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Directed by Rian Johnson. Starring Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher. Release year 2017. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2. Directed by David Yates. Starring Daniel Radcliffe and Rupert Grint. Release year 2011. Black Panther. Directed by Ryan Coogler. Starring Chadwick Boseman and Michael B. Jordan. Release year 2018. Avengers: Age of Ultron. Directed by Joss Whedon. Starring Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Hemsworth. Release year 2015. Frozen 2. Directed by Chris Buck. Starring Kristen Bell and Idina Menzel. Release year 2019. Top Gun: Maverick. Directed by Joseph Kosinski. Starring Tom Cruise and Miles Teller. Release year 2022. Furious 7. Directed by James Wan. Starring Vin Diesel and Paul Walker. Release year 2015. The Avengers. Directed by Joss Whedon. Starring Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. Release year 2012. The Lion King. Directed by Jon Favreau. Starring Donald Glover and Seth Rogen. Release year 2019. Jurassic World. Directed by Colin Trevorrow. Starring Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. Release year 2015. Spider-Man: No Way Home. Directed by John Watts. Starring Tom Holland and Zendaya. Release year 2021. Avengers: Infinity War. Directed by Anthony Russo. Starring Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Hemsworth. Release year 2018. Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Directed by J.J. Abrams. Starring Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill. Release year 2015. Titanic. Directed by James Cameron. Starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. Release year 1997. Avengers: Endgame. Directed by Anthony Russo. Starring Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. Release year 2019. Avatar. Directed by James Cameron. Starring Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana. Release year 2009. If you like our content, please consider supporting our channel on Patreon with as little as $5 donation. The link is in description. Please subscribe to my channel for more exciting videos.